But without further ado, I'd like to ask our colleagues from Portland, Oregon, Angela and Shannon, if you would like to come in with your presentation about a bioregional network for us. Over to you.
I think Shannon's just unmuting.
Sorry, I hit the play before I unmuted.
Lovely to see you both. Thank you very much for coming.
Technical. Hello, I am Shannon Welsh. I'm in Portland, Oregon. I am co-founder of Fibrevolution and also have been the affiliate coordinator for Pacific Northwest Fibreshed, which is a Fibreshed affiliate here in the western part of the US. I entered into this with a passion for textiles. I have a background in design, and my family heritage is in the Midwest in farming. And so I always kind of find it interesting that I do think sometimes the magic of flax is in your blood and it grabs you. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today.
And I'm Angela Wartes-Kahl, and I'm Shannon's business partner for Fibrevolution. And I'm coming at it from an agricultural background as an organic farmer for the last 17 years now. I'm trying to remember how long it's been. And we've been growing flax on our farm in Elsie, Oregon for the last 8 or 9 years. And I'm definitely losing track. And so it's been a while. But we came together, Shannon and I, over the development of natural fibers in our region, and then it blossomed into this sort of commercial side of developing or reviving Oregon linen, and then also the broader context of reviving linen in general for North America. So we have been on a long journey that probably will never end, but we really love it. So we just keep going, and have been very blessed to know a lot of you on this call and gather all your information and expertise to garner a much bigger focus for bringing linen back. So here's our slides.
So this is some images of a festival that used to happen every year in Oregon in the probably between the 40s and 50s. And it was one of the largest community gatherings in the area. It's in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, and that's where most of our flax industry was happening. At the height of the industry, we had about 18,000 acres growing and 14 processing mills. We went all the way from the field through to finished goods. And much of the industry, the infrastructure for the industry was built up through the Federal Works Progress Administration that came out, kind of came through the end of World War II, and an answer to bringing industry to rural Oregon. Flax was definitely a celebrated crop, as you can see. Everyone in the community was involved. They had a flax queen. We got to meet the son of one of the women in the 40s who was a flax queen. And so it's a very lovely story. And there is a real push in Oregon to bring flax back. So Fibreshed, which is what Angela and me, kind of a movement that Angela and me have been working within, embraces this soil to soil vision. And so we have been working within our region to kind of start connecting the pieces of this system. I've been working with Fibreshed for about a decade now, and when I entered into it, I was pretty naive. I just assumed all these things were somehow present, even at a small scale, and then started realizing for North America, flax processing has completely went away. No one's been growing it. And so the industry died mostly for all the other reasons that happened around the world, but much of it was nylon. The end of World War II and all those things started to contribute. We have been, Angela and me, have been working to kind of build each of these pieces in some capacity in our region, but then also taking this kind of soil to soil vision, because there's regions all through the US, and working together with the other regions to start creating supply chains and consistent quality to the flax. So it's a big endeavor, but it's definitely something we see needs to happen. Part of what has really sparked or inspired our community is we've had a lot of community events where we bring people out to the fields, we let them get their hands on flax, see how it grows. And like the previous speaker said, there is lots of hand tools around, and we've made hand tools. So everything's by hand. We have no machinery. We don't have a puller. We have, it's all hand. There's also been a real spark in what grows here. So we have animal fibers. We grow beautiful indigo and plant dye materials, and bast fibers like flax and hemp grow wonderfully here in our soil. So we've been working to kind of work with other farmers and other groups in our region that are invigorating these systems. It's been very exciting and very successful. So where do you start? Angela and me, we had a vision, and once we got into it, we realized there's no seed. Accessing fiber flax seed in North America is a big challenge. We grow a lot of oilseed flax, but not fiber flax varieties. So we were able to tap into some resources at Oregon State University. They have done quite a few trials throughout the years on flax, and we got a small quantity of seed. We were able to work with a seed breeder, Jennifer Kling, who has been breeding varieties of flax that are most adapted to our current climatic conditions and soil. And this past year, even throughout COVID, we were able to harvest, with the help of a farmer friend in Montana, 19,000 pounds of fiber flax seed. So it's taken us about 4 or 5 years to get here, but it's a pretty exciting milestone for us.
So we sold into about over a dozen, maybe 14 or 15 different locations in the United States. And you can see it sort of stretches a band across the top there with the best latitude for growing flax that it's repeated around the world. So it's probably the same in all of your areas as well, except for our outlier in Texas. But they're very innovative there, so they try everything. And we've seen a market increase in interest overall in flax production, and from every size, from like backyard growers all the way to like 4 or 5 acres, and doing a lot of crop rotation on larger organic farms. Our premise is organic because that's my background, and we've constantly put forth that if we're going to revive this natural fiber, we don't want to bring it back, with harsh, conventional farming, and we want to have a much more integrated and whole farm view about fiber development within the food system. So we've been really pushing organic production. So our seed this year will be 100% organic, and last year we had 10 acres of transitional coming in that is now certified. So we've made a lot of partnerships, not just with farms, but also with other Fibreshed groups all over the US. And they, everybody's got a different story of how they came to flax, but mostly it's adaptability to that region. And we can't grow cotton in the north, and also it's flax doesn't take any water normally. Well, I can't say normally anymore. So with climate change, there's no normal. So right now, some of our areas don't take water and some need it. It totally depends on what's happening and what hurricane's hitting your state. So we've had a lot of disruption within the whole overall like growing seasons and agricultural supply chains within North America. due to these very dramatic storm events. And it's kind of surprising how well flax has weathered it. And we've seen increasingly that the varieties that we've been able to revive from the Oregon State University seed bank have a parentage of a little bit of linseed in the background, and that has some drought tolerance aspects to it. And so the Lenore variety that we've been able to commercially increase actually survived where others didn't, especially in the extreme drought conditions that we had in the West this summer, or continue to have, actually, because it hasn't rained yet. So we're
that's 2 minutes, Angela. Thanks.
We're definitely in a tight pickle about how we can make a bioregional expression of flax that includes all of these different aspects and challenges. And that's the versatility of seed and also locations to grow. So you can see across the US that we have quite a bit of space to experiment in and a lot of different crops to rotate through. But how do we process it? So I don't know what it is about the United States, but we have a penchant for scrapping everything. So we, of all those mills that we had in Oregon, there isn't any left except this one, which is a very tiny little location in Canby, Oregon. And ironically, there's some barber machinery cards and combs that are still there. There's 2 of them, and it is surprising that we haven't been able to find hardly anything else, including the pullers and all the mechanization in the field that occurred through the Oregon State Agricultural College early on in the early part of the century. So all of those things exist only in plans and only in archives, and we've been able to collect a substantial too much paperwork probably to get through, but we've been collecting quite a bit of stuff to try and figure out what can we utilize from the past and how can we mechanize it here in the United States on a small scale. And pulling machinery from Europe is definitely a possibility, but these days, this last year, with COVID restrictions on all the transportation and disruptions, it's impossible, if not more expensive than we could ever do. So we've been looking back at the possibility of developing a supply chain domestically in the United States and within North America as well, that will really focus on small producers and then be able to replicate the entire supply chain here, from the seed that we're growing in the field all the way up to actual finished product. Can you go to the next slide? So we post quite a bit of educational material and updates on our Instagram. It's probably the best way to reach us. And we have been trying to get everyone together under a banner of the North American Linen Association. This is our next venture, is to pull everything together so that we have a place to put all our resources and a focus, and we can, distribute, all kinds of information through an association essentially like the CELC in Europe. And we are this next fall going to be really focusing on getting all of our ducks in a row, I guess, and pulling together this organization under a nonprofit, and then have a place for everybody in working committees that will allow us to build up different aspects of this industry so that we can have replication and we can be stronger and more resilient in the face of anything that's to come. And we don't know what that is, obviously. So adaptable plans, that's our motto. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Shannon and Angela, both, we spoke, well, that was the wee small hours for me when we spoke at the last time during lockdown. And this time it's the wee small hours for you. Thank you for getting up so early. I think you just had a hideous storm and everything. I mean, it was really, you really were put through the mill, to use a phrase. I'm going to not say too much more, but I want to bring in Rosie Bristow, who I met very recently, the most recent member of the team that I've met here today. And Rosie is going to tackle some of that question. I love the intensity of your work on seed, and that's super important. Rosie's going to have a little chat about those interim bits of machinery. I was fascinated to hear that the hand tools are still available in Finland, and that in fact growing flax, quite recent, but a lot of the mechanization has gone from Oregon. Rosie, would you like to come in?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, good.
Yeah, I thought that was such an interesting presentation. I guess my main question for you guys was just in terms of scale. You said everything's hand done at the moment, but would you hope to scale back up if possible, or is there a point where you think it's nicer if it's smaller? Is there sort of like an ideal scale that you'd want to work at?
Yeah, we're both. Yes,
Go ahead, Shannon.
I think it depends on the region in the US. For Oregon, Angela, there's a lot of cropland here that can grow flax, and it works well with the rotations of crops we have. So we have kind of a mid-scale plan for a mill here that we envision could be replicated in other regions. Some areas have just smaller landmass to work with, so they might be looking for smaller scale equipment. We've looked into like Taproot in Nova Scotia that has been making kind of that small scale processing. So we definitely want to scale up, but on a regional, with a regional vision instead of, you know, a couple of giant industrial mills that are kind of centralized. Yeah.
I should have introduced Rosie better there. Rosie's doing a master's at Heriot-Watt University and has gone down, as Helen's let us know, the rabbit hole, which is flax and linen. But Rosie, would you like to tell us a little bit about the machinery that you're developing?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was going to be talking about my own project or
just a little
question. Yeah, so I've been working with Simon from Flaxland, who I think is also on the call somewhere, and building a rotor heckler and also a roller breaker up here in Scotland. And I'm hoping we'll be putting them on display tomorrow, actually, as part of the Flax and Linen Festival. So yeah, we're kind of right in the middle of figuring out what scale of processing works. And at the moment, they're like hand-turned machines, but they're definitely the next scale up from sort of small wooden hand brakes and that kind of thing. Yeah, we actually literally just finished building the rotor heckler today just before the call started, so I'll be able to put up a video on Instagram probably later this afternoon.
Excellent, and we'll have one tomorrow when you're visiting us in Kirkcaldy.